Hello and welcome to episode 4 of the Observation Lounge. My name is Charlie Plain. I am the host of this little show where we discuss the goings-on and the concerns and thoughts of Star Trek CCG community at trekcc.org. This is the 4th episode of the show. It is Tuesday, August 18th, 2015, and so far tonight I am joined by 2 guests, possibly more. Let me have them introduce themselves, starting at least all the way on my left with Alan. So, let everybody know who you are and what you continue.
I'm Alan. Go by Alan. I'm creative, and I am currently freelancing with design, and I've done rules and errata and occasional podcast hosting, and I'm almost as cool as Andrea, but not quite.
How are you almost as cool as me, but not quite?
Wow.
Nothing, don't worry, you'll catch up later.
Speaking of Andrea, she just joined us. Andrea, please introduce yourself to everyone.
I'm Andrea Hayward-Lobin. I'm Kamala on the forums. Tribble's art manager. Yep.
And Justin.
Yeah, I'm Justin. Resistance is futile on the boards. And no, I don't play Borg all the time. Just that was a cool name back when I picked it. Been doing a lot of traveling this year for Trek.
Definitely a candidate for the most traveled of 2015, I think.
Oh, yeah.
So before we jump in real quick, and I wanted to read a bit of feedback I got after the last episode from Lord Ducat. He was a long-time member of the community. He said, specifically about the YouTube programs, I am also really enjoying the YouTube programs. I enjoy watching the Observation Lounge. I hope you continue these type of panel discussions. Just as a comment, the frequent use of profanity, particularly the F word, is one thing I think the discussions could do without. I really do want everyone to freely express their feelings on aspects of the game, etc., but some of the language used doesn't really add any value. Instead, it takes away. Just throwing that out there in behalf of myself and my family. So I just thought that was an interesting point of view that it doesn't get represented terribly often. I know that I swear like a sailor sometimes, and I'm not always conscious of it. So thanks for the note, Lord Ducat. I will make a conscious effort to tone down my language, and hopefully we can make the Observation Lounge a show that hits that, PG level of content, PG or lower. So
PG is we're allowed 1 F-bomb per show, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to.
So Andrea debates if she should just drop an F-bomb right now to get it out of the way.
No.
I think, people are going to say what they say, and I can't obviously control everybody, and I'm not going to kick anybody off, but at least I'm going to make an effort to do better when I'm on these type of things. Thank you for the feedback. So we had a lot of topics from the community, but the one that showed up the most seems to be GenCon. That's one user submitted, what do you want to talk about on episode 4? GenCon, and more GenCon. And I watched a 2-hour Section 31 recap about it, so there's a lot of stuff out on the forum, so I don't really want to...
Halfway through that episode.
I don't want to get bogged down in too many details. It looks like we have another person with us. I think Christopher has joined us. Smiley, you may...
Yes, I'll find a light switch somewhere.
I think it's like 3:30 in the morning for you. You're
I was
crazy.
about to say that.
Oh, wow.
It's
That is
insanity.
dedication. That is dedication.
Because I gotta say, you ain't getting me out of bed in 3 in the morning for one of these. Like, my bed is comfortable.
Anyway, so I don't want to get into the details too much about, all the tournament results are posted, all of the discussion threads are going, but I just sort of wanted to touch base on GenCon as an experience. In particular, I know that there have been some people talking about, it's expensive and is it really worth going to? And I certainly am sensitive to the expense. It's not cheap to get to Gen Con. It's not cheap to stay in a hotel downtown. But what are the? At least three of the panel here went to Gen Con. So we'll start with them. Andrea, what are the reasons to go to Gen Con for you? What gets you over that financial hurdle?
I mean, it that for Gen Con, that's like the one thing Chris and I go out of our way to go to. It's just such a unique gaming experience. Not to say that we wouldn't be open to other events, but it's within driving distance for us. We volunteer, so that helps with some of the cost. I don't know. It's a really cool experience to be somewhere that is, yeah, it's like a family reunion. It's so much fun, and yeah, I wouldn't want to miss it.
Justin, how about you? I mean, you've hit 4 or 5 Masters events. You've hit Gen Con. You're about to fly across to the other half of the planet. What puts Gen Con as a stop for you on that schedule?
Well, this being the second year doing the 4-day pass, found it when I found the community 3 years ago. Like I just said, it's an awesome family reunion. To see the people here you develop, you talk with, in the chat room, PM on the boards, just to talk, just to catch up. I really don't do much non-Trek stuff just because I don't really have that much time besides work and everything, so it doesn't really bother me. Maybe one year someone will drag me into a true dungeon run, but who knows? But it's definitely it is a lot of fun. I would say this for anyone going: don't go for 1 or 2 days like I did the first time. Go for all 4 days, and go home on Monday is the best way to do it. You get the full experience. You'll be able to stay up late till like 2 in the morning playing Cards Against Humanity or Trek Against Humanity or whatever. So, yeah.
So, Alan and Christopher, what? I don't know if I think Alan, you might have been to Gen Con in a long time ago, if ever, and I don't know if you've ever been, but what is there anything that watching from afar is like, oh man, that looks cool, I would like to go. Understanding that there are many reasons why you can't. What draws you to the idea, if anything?
Alan can start.
All right. I gotta say, every year it's that bit of hearing that everybody's all in one place, and kind of like it's getting to see everybody be good, because I live far up in the Great Canadian North, and I mean, good grief, like I live in the same country as Chris and Andrea, and I still have never met them in person. So, that's the part that always gets me every year. Is that like, well, damn, it'd be nice to go, catch up and pay off all those beers I owe.
You'd be broke from buying everyone beers. Like, let's be fair.
For the record, Chris, those are amazing glasses.
Thank you. I found them again. I have a couple of different ones. Well, for me, I would have loved going. As Alan said, it's cool to hear all people be in the same place. And I guess like I go to other conventions down in like Europe and stuff like that. So I usually end up at Spiel every year. I've been there for the last 9 years, I guess now. So maybe I should start going to Gen Con too. It sounds awesome. I have thought about it, but it's a bit pricey for me to go.
Yeah, the international flights and all. I certainly understand the arguments against Gen Con. I mean, a lot of the highlights that you guys have all mentioned, which is the family reunion aspect and the meeting friends and all that. We could do that anywhere. I mean, we could go to Vegas or we could go to Toronto and have a similar experience. But for me, what Gen Con offers you is like the there's 40,000 people in this building just playing games, you know, and like I couldn't have this past Gen Con was the first time. This past Gen Con was my 10th Gen Con running Star Trek events. My 10th Gen Con in a row. And this was the first time in 10 years I left the Star Trek area to actually go play another game. And I played Pathfinder all day Thursday. And if we just had, you know, the Trek Continentals and in somewhere, and it was just that. I mean, yeah, there could have been side games and everything, and that would have been fun. But it's just like, if I wanted to not sleep, if I wanted to just be hopped up on caffeine or sugar or whatever, stay up all night, there's something going on. Like, they had Magic tournaments at 2 in the morning. You know, I could have done whatever I wanted all weekend, and that's a pretty big appealing factor to me. Not to mention the promotional aspects of it. You know, we picked up a number of players that just, yeah, I saw you in the book, and I didn't realize people still made this game, and had new people playing the game, and we gave out a lot of business cards, and it's a lot of exposure there, which is nice. So I understand that Gen Con is expensive, and I understand that there be people that don't go. And Lord Ducat's actually in the chat room, and he said he enjoyed Gen Con. It seemed a little less attended than previous years for Trek, which is certainly true. Ever since we started rotating the World Championship around, the year after Worlds, there's always a drop. And I know that Gen Con being like 3 weeks earlier this year, it was the end of July instead of like this past weekend is when it should have been. I think that kept a lot of people from going, and then there are people who are traveling to Worlds, so they couldn't justify both trips and so forth. But I think Gen Con's a good time, and everybody should give it a go. But it is definitely the type of thing you got to budget for. So.
Well, and I gotta say, the size isn't appealing to me. Like, the biggest convention I've gone to is Calgary Comics Expo, and that one they pulled 50,000 over the weekend, and it was just too many people. I don't know. I'm just hobbity that way, I guess.
The nice thing about Gen Con is that as the numbers have gone up, their space has expanded. So, like, when Gen Con first started, over the years they've basically taken over the entire convention center. So there's more people, but there's also a lot more space. So there are certainly times when you're, you know, excuse me, especially in the exhibitor hall, but in terms of gaming space, it's pretty spread out. So, all right. So, hopping from gaming past to gaming future, we have a pretty major tournament coming up in about 6 weeks, and that's the World Championship, which is down in Australia again. And I know that at least one of our panel, the world traveler himself, Justin, is going. How are you looking forward to making that trip?
Well, you know, the primary purpose of the trip is obviously to see Australia. You know, it's a nice added benefit to be able to play some Trek, you know, and whatnot. I've got it. All my days are so packed. I've probably got 18-hour days packed, including Trek events scheduled in Sydney. May go up to Brisbane for a day or two to see the zoo. But I think definitely for Australia, if you do go, don't go on the basis of playing Trek. Go down there to see the country, and then, you know, factor in the main events. If you only play 2E, then you only go to the one event, maybe Tribbles, and then you see the country, because it is very expensive. But it's gonna be a lot of fun. I have not been to Australia, and so it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I have a hard time on a 3-4 hour plane trip. I can't imagine. What is it, 12 hours to get down there, something like that? 16?
15 and a half hours from Vancouver.
Ooh, no, thank you. That would be tough. So.
God, I did 8.5 to England, and by the end of that, I was ready to just jump off the plane.
The plane does leave at 11:30 at night, Tuesday night, and so I probably plan on getting myself out of bed Tuesday morning at like 4, so I'm exhausted, so I can sleep for half the flight.
That never works for me. Like if I think the only way I'd be able to ever do a flight like that is if I had a doctor who was like, "Here, have a bottle of Xanax. Just take them all before you get on the plane, and then you're fine." So,
I am 0 for 3 for leaving the country and having the plane flights go routinely. So I just assume I'm going to be up for the whole thing for something. You know, fuse out, de-icing the plane. I think my favorite is we got off the plane to Vegas the same day that the bathroom shoe bomber idiot on the guy who was trying to mix chemicals in the air. Yeah, like we woke up day one on our Vegas vacation to the airports are shut down. It was like, well, hopefully they'll sort that out in 7 days. Let's go. Yeah.
If I would have if I would have gone with a flight to Sydney, it's an 18-hour flight for me.
Oh,
yeah, I don't know my geography as well as I should, but I'm pretty sure you're just about on the other side. Like that's a
Yes.
as far as you can talk. I will say this: I mean, they've made a lot of great improvements in technology and like routing, so they have a lot more, non-stop trips and stuff, and it certainly makes it easier, I think. But oh boy, I don't like I said, I get antsy sitting in a plane for 5 hours. I can't imagine triple that. So other than traveling, I mean, let's talk briefly about this was a popular request. In particular, I think this is going to be more of a one-y show, given the nature of our panel here, but we'll float around a little bit. A lot of people wanted to talk about what we expect at Worlds, what we expect the game to be like. I have questions here. They want us to hear us talking about Kazon and Genesis and Quantum Incursions and the game without In the Zone. So just in terms of 1E, and I'll open this up to anyone. I know some of you can contribute more than others. What do we think the environment is going to be like at Worlds, assuming there's no release between now and then, which, who knows? So.
Oh, I think we're going to see a lot of the classic continuing mission or illegit speed solvers, because seeing those at GenCon, seeing those online, they are classic vomit out people and attempt with like 3-4 crews, 4 or 5 ships, and steamroll through 2 missions and win. Kazon, I don't know how many Australians play Kazon. I do. I am not playing Kazon, and I will say that right now. In day one, I will not be playing Kazon. But yeah, it's too risky with no end zone.
Well, and Worlds tends to bring out the conservative in everybody, so I imagine there's people trying to figure out if they can beat, if they can cheat around now that In the Zone isn't a thing, but I don't know if anybody's gonna commit to it for Worlds.
Well, it would have to be something that somebody's been holding back, right? Because there hasn't been anything at any of the 3 continentals that was like, here's some broken cheese. So if somebody's got some broken cheese, they've been holding on to it, which I suppose is likely. That's not unreasonable, but I would like to think that we would have heard about it by now. So and really the whole free report salad 2 mission win thing didn't care about In the Zone anyway. You just got to 50 points and then got to 50 points on your second mission.
Right.
Now you have the option. I would actually argue that In the Zone makes it so that you can do 3 missions now. You don't have to stack. I think it pushed some of the focus away from stacking bonus points. Stack AMS and whatever bonus points I can to get to 50, and then do it again the next turn. And it brought the comeback into play. So I mean, I'm on record of being a big fan of In the Zone being gone. So we'll see if any shenanigans emerge. I mean, Kazon Battle, this Kazon Battle deck that's running around is certainly always a threat, especially in a bracket on day 2.
I think Borg will be a tough call. I don't think we're going to see a lot of Borg because knowing the zone, that's one of the Borg's biggest strengths. That and mission briefing, of course. Um, I don't, I
I mean, wouldn't you think with In the Zone gone and thus mission debriefing being more likely, you would see more Borg because they just don't care?
I thought so, but we didn't see that.
Borg are also really hard to play if you've never played them before. So
True.
Yeah, you have to. Borg is a lifestyle. You don't just show up in Borg for a day.
I love that. It's a life.
Well, no, I mean, and I'm saying it flippantly, but really, because I'm at the point, because I don't play as much as I'd like to anymore, but I played Borg. I have a hard time playing non-Borg now, because it's you need mission requirements, and it's like, what are these mission requirements you speak of? I'm Borg. I punch through dilemmas. I take your guy. Like, why do I care what's written on these again? Right? Like, it's a mind shift. So, I think Borg players are going to look at like In the Zone's gone, whatever. It's because if people, I mean, it would only matter to Borg if we're actually going to see people finishing faster than they were within the zone in.
Well, you see more Borg decks like Jeremy Huth's Borg deck that does 2 objectives and win. I think his deck is like 35 cards, and it's pretty fast for a Borg deck.
Yeah.
all right.
I tend to play.
Sorry, go ahead, Christopher.
I tend to play against Borg decks all the time because my playgroup here always play Borg. So I think I've seen some really good decks from Borg lately, but as you said, it's a way of life to be able to play them well, and I don't know, what we'll see for World is someone has been hiding something, I guess, for Worlds, and
Yeah,
they've
I mean,
been hiding good.
It's possible. It's also possible that there's a lot of ghosts out there. People are chasing ghosts.
Yeah.
I'll put my money on Ken is hiding something.
I don't know. I mean, if they are, they are, and if they bust it out for Worlds, I guess I can't blame them. But and we will deal with it. We have an errata team in place. We have a really solid design team. We have the ban list, so if something comes out and it's like, oh, look what I broke because In the Zone is gone, I don't think the answer is bring In the Zone back. I think the answer is fix what that problem is, and then, we just I know that the removal of In the Zone was controversial, but I stand by that decision, and I think it was going to give us much more useful data in the long term than leaving it in the game would have.
I agree.
Yeah.
So real quickly, we can talk about 2E, and this is not a super strong 2E panel, but there are some 2E players here. I was fairly happy to see what was played and won at the Continentals events. I think the biggest surprise for me was that nobody at North America played Voyager, whereas the Europeans kind of like really jumped on the Voyager decks. I know Voyager has typically been more popular in Europe than in North America, so that may simply explain it. But, with Strange Bedfellows and then Lower Decks out, what are you expecting to see, Justin, when you head down there?
Oh, I fully expect to see New Dominion. New Dominion is very strong and very powerful right now. You can basically solve everything with four or five people and skill cheat up the wazoo, lose points. Gamma Romulans, Dia's cast is huge. I mean, that negates Chula piles, and you have to play smart. You just can't do one stop, two stop. You gotta track a little bit better and get those all stops. A Voyager, I was surprised too. With only one Voyager deck, I'll give a shout out to Roxanne again. The only Voyager deck at GenCon with the highest strength of schedule out of the whole group. That's pretty awesome.
I did misspeak. I said nobody played Voyager. That's not true. Roxanne Barber played Voyager. She did very well. What I meant was the 5-space Voyager, the new tech Voyager. Nobody played that. Roxanne's Voyager was a traditional Voyager build, a very good one, but a traditional Voyager build. So.
Is it just too soon? Nobody's worked out the kinks yet?
Well, I would say that, except it got played at Europeans pretty heavily. I mean, maybe in North America they weren't as popular. Romulans are good, but you can drain them out of their resources real quick. I think Romulans have been good for a couple years now. They have, the most reliable bonus points in the game, which is an actual counter to the New Dominion. They have a super majorly efficient ship in Bird of Prey, and they have skill tanks and entropy cheaters, so they're always a solid affiliation. New Dominion is good, but and this is kind of a thing. This is also true of the Romulan Gamma Quadrant decks. Is the power of those decks is inversely proportional to how much the meta is adjusting to them. Right, the more 9-cost 9 range ships and range boosters that are being used, the less effective Crippling Strike is. The more variants you put in your dilemma piles, the less effective the Stakoron missions are. So
yeah, sorry.
Go ahead, please.
No, that also brings back a card I saw in the Texas Regional that Corbett was using. Storage Compartment Door. I have not seen that card used in a long time, but with like I said, the Stakoran missions, Storage Compartment is an awesome way to just run no dual dilemmas and just put your planet ones on the compartment if you're in space, and you can be able to swap out when you go to planet, and that seemed to work out quite effectively.
Yeah, I mean the New Dominion and the Stakoran missions were designed to take the meta right now and just punish it. The we're gonna run our dilemma pile that's 3 space dilemmas, 2 planet dilemmas, and 25 dual dilemmas, and just sort of slap that around, and slap around the 4-cost 7 range ships or 4-cost 8 range ships. Those were designed to get slapped around, and until people adjust to that, they're gonna be hurt by those decks. So
I haven't seen DS9, the DS9 common enemy decks as much.
I've definitely seen them. They haven't shown up as in the high level as much. I think they're more local favorites. There's a DS9 Unstoppables deck. I know Tyler didn't do terribly well at GenCon this year, but he seemed to indicate to me that was some random selection luck. That can happen, but like the DS9 can put together a deck that can't be stopped, and that's pretty powerful. And they get just as much or more advantage out of the Stakoran missions as the Romulans do. So, all right, so let's talk about the game that everybody cares about, Tribbles.
Yay!
So. Just so Andrea can talk. So we got to debut.
I love where it stops.
How did it play? How did it feel for you guys? Andrea, Justin, go.
What did you think, Justin, about the new cards and the new?
I definitely say that there was a couple of games where we had in the Mannheim lab up where perpetual party going on, and I ended up going out for almost 2 million with that power up. I know the Clone Machine one is a pretty fun one as well, but that just messes with your mind. We played it.
Very focused track of that.
We played it locally on Sunday, and we'll play it again locally this Sunday after 1E. And yeah, I think it's going to get played at every Tribbles tournament now because it's just fun. It adds another dimension.
Yes.
Yeah, the thing that I thought would happen, which is when the first time you're playing Tribbles, there's a lot of what does that do? How does that work? It slows things down a bit, and then as by Saturday, everybody was just kind of like, okay, it's this one, all right, and it wasn't slowing things down at all.
Yeah.
I know that at Australian Continentals and European Continentals, they did preview of them without the full cards out, so I don't know. North American Continentals, we didn't use them at the actual Continental, so Worlds will be the first time troubles are used for a major championship, so I'm very curious to see
Are
how
they
they
using
go.
it for the championship?
I
Is
believe
that
so.
okay? Yeah.
I do not quote me on that. I don't know for sure, but I believe they are being used.
Okay.
I believe the plan was to always have them for the high-level events, to always be using them.
Okay.
Unless, of course, like they came out and everybody hated them. So if public opinion dies in 6 months, maybe not. But I hope people will
I
give them.
know some of our Wednesday night online group doesn't like them, but I think that's more about the function of them in Lackey. And also, I'm normally the one both keeping score and keeping track of the troubles, and I can't do both effectively. You have
Yeah.
to focus and have someone whose job it is to just keep track of the troubles. Because yeah, I sort of screwed up last Wednesday by not keeping track of things as effectively as I should have. But
You need a
you don't want to
trouble keeper and a scorekeeper. So
yes.
alrighty. So at this point, I do have some more community feedback and all that stuff, but I want to open the floor to everybody here. What's on your guys' mind before we dive into the questions and topics I got from submissions? What do you guys want to talk about?
I'm kind of curious what'll happen when TNG rotates out of 1E.
Per block.
Yeah. This kind of a big moment that's going, like, nobody's talking about it. Probably because we haven't ramped up the crossover spoilers yet. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting. There aren't a ton of block tournaments, but there's a decent number. There's most of the tournaments are OTF, but or OTF complete. But there are block tournaments, and it's going to be. When I look back at TNG with my designer hat on, I'm just kind of like, we have learned a lot since then. And those cards are just strictly better than what's come in DS9 and what's coming in crossover. It will be interesting.
Idea for crossover in terms of timing?
No, we have not announced anything yet, but stay tuned because it's not far. Just sorting out logistics. But it'll be
After Worlds, though, right?
You never know.
Oh, shit. And around the world, 1E players are having heart attacks, right?
Everything's planned. They're nice decks and everything.
I've already had my Worlds deck planned, so it don't matter to me.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, you're really correct because TNG was at a power level here, and I think DS9 was at a power level here, and we tried this. We tried to level them out, didn't quite get there. So now as TNG goes away, you've got DS9 and Mirror, which are much closer, and have a lot more block-to-block synergy. It's going to be interesting to see how things go. And this is really the first time that we're going to go from 6 sets to 4 sets that are all sort of meant to work together.
Yeah.
And that's going to be an interesting shift to see as well. This is really the first rotation that
is an actual
matters.
rotation.
Yeah, is an actual rotation. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes, and we'll have to see how it plays out.
I'm just hoping for a renaissance for my poor Maki.
Yeah, I definitely think we didn't do as well as we could have in the DS9 block. Although I think some were more successful than others. I mean, I think that the fact that anybody's playing with Gamma Quadrant missions now at all is kind of nice. That you can actually kind of use this, We Need You Here alone kind of revitalized stations, NORs.
And I think part of it's just DS9 is a little, or sorry, TNG's a little high on the power curve, and so you have to take the hit to get back to where you want to be. So when TNG goes away, it'll be interesting to see when people go back to looking at those DS9 decks, and now that is the top of the curve in block.
Yeah. I like Marquee. I like playing them. So.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting when we do the rotation. And then that actually, Alan, is as good a segue as anything into showing off a crossover spoiler.
Yeah.
So there's a bit of before I get to that, there's a bit of a conversation in the chat room about saying, I thought it. Wedge772 says, I thought it was definitely releasing by War of Worlds. I'd rather it not, but wants to know for sure sooner rather than later. And Amber Market Tree says she would rather not have a huge new set right before Worlds. Is it or isn't it? People are trying to figure out decks. We're not being deliberately vague. We know, and we're trying to. We're having internal discussions to decide. And as soon as we know, we will tell you. We are not being. The plan was to have it out by now. We're supposed to have it out before Worlds. At this point, we're trying to decide if we still want to do that or if we want to wait. We will give you an answer as soon as we know. I'm not being deliberately. I don't know, and I'm not telling you. We have not yet put it on the calendar. So. But anyway,
there's more things to it than just pushing send.
Yeah, my personal belief is that we're trying very hard to get to a set release schedule that's 20 sets come out in August, December, and April, and 2 sets come out in October, February, and June, and just sort of this is when they come out. And so if you're scheduling high level events in the future, you'll know, hey, there's going to be a 1 set in August. So if I schedule an event in September, that's a reality. That's if there's always something coming that if we try to avoid putting sets out to when there's nothing on the calendar, there's really only like one time a year we can do anything. And that's trying to cram, a 1 set, a 2 set, and whatever else in that one time frame, and that's just not not realistic. It's not realistic for our volunteer resources. So,
speaking of volunteer resources, I know it's going to get asked because all the tournament directors see the Promenade out of stock. Any words on when tournament directors can expect to see kits up for sale again?
As soon as we know, we will let you know. The question is whether we're going to extend the current kits through the end of the year or whether we're going to roll in the new ones in September.
Ah, nice.
That's the hang-up right now. And once I have an answer to that question, I can order the supplies and we'll do a big production run and get them out. So
nice.
I think we traded a problem we had last year, which was people were ordering things and then not getting them for months for a different problem, which I know that there are people who are frustrated in both cases, but at least this way we're not in a situation where we're taking your money and not giving you something.
Yeah, I think this way is a lot better.
Yeah, you can't be in a situation where you've paid for something and you're waiting 3 months to even see. I mean, there are still glitches with the system, obviously, but this is like now you're just if we're out, we're out. And you're not paying for something we don't have. So we'll get better.
Only video games do that.
And we have some. I think Ken or maybe someone else suggested a subscription model.
Yeah.
Where tournament directors can say, I want a kit a month for 3 months or 6 months or whatever. I think we're going to do that. It's just sort of figuring out the logistics of how it will work. Like PayPal does subscriptions. It's just getting PayPal to tell our system that the subscription payment went through and generating the order. So it's just getting all the pieces working. So I think that will be something that we'll be rolling out probably whenever the next kits come out.
Nice.
Or in the early in the next year we'll be like, okay, so now you can subscribe. And then we'll just automatically charge your card every so often, and you don't have to deal with buying passes and buying all this other stuff. It's just at a certain point every month, you get a kit.
Yeah, and
So-
then you know how much to order. It'll help you with the ordering too.
Yeah, there are a lot of advantages to it. It's just sorting out the technology because we don't have IT people that we pay to do all this stuff and figure this stuff out for you. We have Andrea's husband sitting on a couch looking at me like, probably off camera, being like, "God damn it, Charlie, stop
it." Yeah, Chris is awesome. It's the brains behind our website. It's awesome.
Well, and it's just hearing the discussion. It's like we're really a small multinational running completely on volunteers, right?
Yeah.
Basically.
Oh, yeah.
And I've heard on any number of people, former Trek players or former members of the community, that are like, I don't know how you guys have such a good website when companies that make a lot of money have such crappy websites. So we're awesome. So. Anyway, I promised a crossover spoiler,
Yeah.
and we got sidetracked. So let me pull up the spoiler, and I'm going to let Christopher talk about it.
Well, I'm on my iPad right now, and I apparently couldn't screen share from this one, so I just wanted to show off one of Art's fantastic work. I've seen this a while now, and it was one of the first that Johnny did for us, and I just love the new art for this. And yeah, you can read that, but it's the 3D Klingon Cardassian Alliance, and I just love to show off our art's fantastic images that they do for us, and they should have all the credit that they can have for that one, because it's beautiful, I think.
So let me read this for everybody that may not be able to see it.
Yes.
It is, as Christopher said, it's Treaty Klingon Cardassian Alliance. The lore says, in the Mirror Universe, the Cardassian Union and the Klingon Empire united with other smaller powers to take advantage of the peaceful reforms of the Terran Empire. The game text is, seeds or plays on table. Your KCA cards may mix and cooperate, and your KCA leaders may use your KCA ships. Your KCA leaders may attempt Klingon and Cardassian missions.
It's awesome.
Actually, it just occurred to me, Christopher, we got to fix this, because that should be Klingon and Cardassian squares.
Yes, you're right.
So,
That's
hey, luckily we haven't released the card yet. Anyway,
this is why.
and
Proofreading live on air.
Well, we have a whole proofreading team that all missed that, so we have to be more careful. But yeah, we'll get that fixed before release. Anyway, so Christopher, the triple treaty picture, that's pretty epic.
Yes.
John did a fantastic job with that.
The art is awesome, yeah.
Yeah.
I'll give you a couple. Well, first of all, let me hear your guys' reactions. What do you guys? It's not a super exciting card, but I'm curious what everybody thinks.
But my question, the emblem card, the emblem of the Alliance, that lets your KCA cards mix, right?
Correct.
Yes.
So the only added benefit here is the ship staffing and the mission attempting, basically.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
That's the staffing and the attempting. Yeah.
That is added benefit. The reason this card exists, that's part of it, obviously. But the reason this card exists is the starter deck.
Yeah.
Because the problem is the Empire of the Alliance provides a free report, and the Empire of the Emblem of the Empire does not. So we didn't want to put the Emblem of the Alliance in that starter deck because we're trying to keep the starter decks all built on the new arrivals model of like play a universal, draw an extra card.
Right.
We could have put Emblem of the Alliance in there and then gone way out of our way to make sure that none of the people in the starter deck name a leader that is in the starter deck, but that keeps, the star power kind of out of the starter deck, and that was a lot more work than we thought it was, so we just kind of made a card that hand-waved it and said they work together. And then we made it, one of the problems that we had identified with KCA was the two issues here, that the ship issue more, where it's, I'm getting all my Cardassians, but I only have a Klingon ship. And, you can ops download a ship then, but that's that was a lot more of a cost before We Need You Here came out. But the extra mission thing is just sort of icing on the cake. But and fun design story for you. This was not a treaty for 99% of design. This was just an event. It was literally the same game text, but Homefront 6 came out, and there is there's a card in there that bounces treaties. Cellular peptide cake, maybe? I don't remember.
Yeah.
Cellular peptide cake.
And one of our playtesters, like the last week of playtesting, was like, "Hey, cellular peptide cake is gonna make this sad." And we were looking at it and we're like, "Well, maybe we could make it an incident. Maybe we could do all this, or we could do all that." Sorry, cellular peptide cake doesn't bounce treaties. It bounces events that aren't treaties.
Yes.
So we were like, "Well, that's gonna make all this all sad." And then somebody in the design team was like, "Well, why don't we just make it a treaty, and then it can't be bounced?" And we're like, "Okay, that's the most elegant solution ever, because we add 7 characters at the front of the card title and it's done." So this card went from being called something else to Treaty Klingon Cardassian Alliance.
Yeah, I'm more now like almost every one of my 1A decks carries at least 1 or 2 copies of the Devil, because treaties are played so often. It's gonna be interesting how many more Devils we see in decks.
Well, with the preponderance of Bajoran resistance cell out there, and thus Bajoran-fed treaties in particular, I don't think playing a Devil is a bad idea, or a Lance Cartwright. So
I like that card, because that's what it should have been back in Mirror Mirror.
Yeah. I think it's a good card. It's probably not gonna see a ton of play in constructed decks. It might, just for the leader and the mission attempt thing. It just makes it so you don't have to think about that as much. You can screw with your ratios a little bit. You can use better personnel rather than having to use crappy Cardassians just to get into your missions.
And that's what KCA's problem has always been, is it's all their affiliations don't line up with, like, your ships are all one color and all your good people are another color, and it's just a pain in the arse.
Yep. So, and that card, by the way, was 21V for anybody out there who wants to start their speculative lists.
Yes.
21V. All right, does anybody else want to throw out a topic before I bring up, probably only have time for one more from the community before we finish, but if there's anybody in the chat room have a topic they want to hear about, or anyone on the panel?
Well, while we're waiting for people to say it, I'll point out there's some people saying our site's better than Fantasy Flight Games and WizKids Online, and I would add in, no, that is WizKids, because the Attack Wing website is words I shouldn't say in a chat room.
Yeah.
Words we're trying to avoid in this session.
Oh, yes.
Well, like, I don't want to... When the My Little Pony CCG first came out, their website was like a single page, and there were 3 graphics that were links. And it was like, one was a PDF of the card link, one was a store, and one was something else, and that was it. That was all the website had. There was no like forum, there was no searchable card, like there's no deck builder for that game even still. It's just, it amazes me. And I've had former Trek players come up to me at GenCon and being like, I don't understand how you guys are so efficient running all this stuff when WizKids has all these resources and all these staff, and they can't, or Fantasy Flight in particular gets criticized. Fantasy Flight, it has been tournaments, because they're just...
I'll do you one better. The next time you're looking to just feel that Kafka-esque hopelessness, try and register your kid as a Pokemon player on their website. And I'm not kidding. It is actively terrible. for a game that is that huge and has been around for that long, something as simple as, hey, I want to sign my kid up to be a Pokemon player, is I'd rather do my taxes.
Oh. No, it is Canadian taxes versus U.S. taxes, so there's a little bit of difference there. But
Well, I mean, in all fairness, you know, Chris and Charlie and the gang has had 8 years to basically evolve this website. So, you know, I'm sure we had a basic website when it launched in 2007, and now it's this massive monstrosity that can hold gigabytes of data.
It was actually quite good when we started.
Yeah, it was simple. Like we had the advantage of having the card database built already, which again, I'm sure at this point Chris is now sitting on the couch ruining me again, because I wrote the original card database. It was very small scale. It was not meant to be. It was 2E only, and it had a card search engine. That was about it. And now it's kind of evolved way past that, but we're kind of still stuck using some of the same, maybe not the brightest idea decisions that I made all those years ago. So I secretly think that Chris probably wants to murder me. But
he's shaking his head, but he's laughing.
maybe only a little bit, but he probably still kind of wants to murder me.
But before we go on, I think the point is our website may have been simple, but it's always been well done.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is there any TUI spoilers coming up? Any
TUI just had a set, man. TUI just had a thing.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Oh, that's right. Lower Decks. Yeah.
There's a new.
We're spoilers.
We're finishing up. Not finishing up, but we're heading down the hill on the next 2E set. So that'll be coming eventually, probably sometime this fall. So, like, we're serious about trying to hit this schedule, which is going to be good for everybody. So,
more cards are good.
More cards are always good. So, I'm going to bring this one up simply because the guy's asked it like 3 times now, and I haven't addressed it yet. He writes, he is very curious to know how you get on a design team. He has a number of suggestions about ways to get, what he thinks, but in general, how somebody out there in the community can get to being on design. So there's one person here who's actually done it. Alan, why don't you tell me a little bit about how you got to design and what you think makes a good designer. So.
If I knew how to be a good designer, I'd be one. Okay, well, the flippant answer is I got on my first design team because I got an email from Dan saying, hey, you want to come work on Maquis? And I said, hell yes. The longer answer is I started volunteering. Well, I mean, I was answering rules questions on the forums, and then there were spots for the rules committee, and I volunteered for that. And I mean, it's you get involved at the low end of stuff, playtesting, and then you're there, and then people because I went from that and then errata because that became a thing. It's I guess the only real advice for it is it's to get involved because there's a lot of jobs that need to be done, and I will say this as a guy who has been on 2 design teams now. The playtesters are it's one thing to sit there on the ivory tower and come up with wonderful and crazy ideas, and anybody who's playtested one of my sets knows exactly the crazy level. But it's the playtesters, and it's playing the game. It's there and going through and saying this is fun and this isn't fun and this is too weak and what the hell were you thinking? Crap, there's my bad word for the day. And it's being there, and you do stuff and then people ask you to do more stuff. It's how you get in any volunteer organization. You show up and you do what needs doing. Because I'm probably the weird one that's actually worked on all the major 1E departments except creative, because dear heavens, I am no good at that. Chris, have you done the whole bit?
Yes, everything let's see. I've done rules, creative, playtesting. Yeah, everything but design. I think, yeah.
Of all of us, you get to see all the design stuff, and
Yes. I do.
Honestly, my only regret was I don't know how I did not find this community back in 2007. I mean, I was playing Star Trek with my college roommates, and we just never found the website. I'm not sure. I don't know.
well, let me ask you this question, Justin, and Andrea. You feel free to jump in. What qualities would you want to see in a designer? You know, like if you were going to pick somebody to be a designer for your favorite game, be it 1E, 2E, or triples, what qualities would you want to see in them?
Andrea?
Go ahead. No, that's okay.
You know, just like any team-oriented project, you know, you gotta be open-minded. Whether you're on a playtesting team where you can see a design, where you've seen design sets go from the first version to the final version of playtesting, you know, you've seen the progression. Crazy ideas get passed around. You know, throw that crazy idea out there. You know, don't be afraid. I think you need a group of people that work well together. I think the Lower Decks team for TUI was a great team. I think those people work good together. You know, and that's what you need. You need a solid team that they can argue and not get butthurt over. Well, you said my idea was stupid. Well, it might be stupid, but let's talk about it. You know.
Yeah, but building teams is its own complication. But Andrea, did you have any thoughts? I don't mean to put you on the spotlight. If you don't, that's fine.
From my perspective, I deal obviously mostly with tribbles, and I deal with the graphics and sourcing the images and everything. I think for game development, you have to obviously have a good feel for the games. You have to have a good feel for the direction of the games and the source material in terms of graphics and in terms of the storyline and the feel of it. I guess I look at it very organically, that you really have to have an idea and a vision to go with. So
Pants of the Tel Shiar in the chat room said, in response to our discussion, in particular what Alan said, so in other words, to get in on a design team, you first have to do a lot of other work just for exposure?
Well, and I was going to bring that one up. Because part of it is, it's like design is, for lack of a better word, it's grueling. Like when you watch the guys doing the what's our game show?
Make It So.
The Make It So. I mean, and that I would say Make It So is worse than actual design. Not by much, but it's worse because you're doing it in public and.
Well,
but
everybody thinks design is like making cards, and that's probably, I don't know, would you say maybe at most 25% of what you do as a designer? Like, I would say the vast majority of your time on design is doing research.
Yeah.
Either you're researching existing cards, you're researching cards from other games, you're researching Star Trek, you're trying to figure out how many security Bajorans there are in the game, and then how many of them have what property logo. You're doing just legwork, and then the rest of it is sitting in meetings arguing.
Yeah. But to Pants's point there, I'd say design, because part of it is everybody wants their cards, right? So like design is you got to get stuff done. So doing some stuff for other groups. You're establishing your bona fides as someone who shows up and gets the work done and doesn't disappear for months at a time, or like it is. I don't know. There's no good way to put it other than like everybody wants their cards, so the design slots seem to go to people who are able to put the time in for it.
Well, maybe also, like, I think what he said in the chat room too, you need exposure to get on design teams. You don't. Maybe how hard would it be to maybe run 2 Make It So's a year instead of 1?
Oh God, don't even. Oh God, it's so hard. Make It So is so much work. I don't even like as much work as it is for the contestants. It's just as much work for the people behind the scenes.
More, I would say. But
Yeah,
I would love to do another Make It So. I get why. I mean, Charlie's got so much stuff on his plate already, but I would love to do another Make It So. And I say that knowing that I will get roped into judging it again. I would love to do it.
So let me give you a couple things here. There's not a clear answer for how to get on design. I mean, we're basically being vague, but a couple things we've done recently that are of note. We recently, for both 1E and 2E, have switched from 3-person design teams to 4-person design teams.
Yes.
What that means is that we're going to get more different people working on designs, which is good for everybody, because the last thing you want on your core design team is everybody in agreement. You want different points of views, different skill levels, different perspectives. And the idea behind this 4th slot is we're kind of calling it the intern slot. But the idea is it's going to be somebody who's not a core designer, based on the needs of the project. For example, we just started a particular project for 1E that has a very top-down focus, which means we're going to start with story and sort of make cards to that story. So for that 4th slot, they wanted somebody from the creative team. So they went to the creative team and said, we want a designer to work on this project with us. And these 4 slots are only ever, you get this big long disclaimer when you sign up for it that basically says you get one, like this is your one.
Your one what?
Project, your one shot. And with the idea being, if we bring this person in and they're really good, we can bring them back later as another intern. We can invite them on the design team permanently. If they come in and they're rubbish, there's still a 3-person design team there to do the work of the expansion, and we never have to invite them back again. So we're going to be pulling these 4th slot people from probably most of the time internal team to the rules team. Or, if we were looking for a particular, like, let's say we wanted to do a Borg heavy expansion, we might go to the community and find the guy who's played Borg 50 times and say, would you like to work on this project with us? So there is an opportunity for, or we might say, hey playtester, you've been doing awesome, amazing work for the past year. Would you like to work on this project with us? There may be opportunities like that. The particular person who submitted this says he wants there to be a public avenue to design. And, we've done that with Make It So, and I'm not ruling out Make It So happening again. I think at least on our 1E side, we're fairly good right now. I know on our 2E side, we could probably stand to bring some people in, and Nick and I have bounced a few ideas back and forth that, maybe we will make a new opportunity for public. I could do a whole episode on how to be a designer, because I get every time we've done applications, I get just some, and I don't mean to be rude or condescending, but I get some really bad applications, and I could probably do a whole podcast on just here are some things to think about and some things to avoid. I am sensitive to the desire for there to be a public path to design, and I think that we can create opportunities where we can, especially with this new 4th-person design team slot. I think we're going to get more opportunities to get more people involved in design as we go.
Yes.
And I was just curious, how much time goes in to being on the design team, would you say, for a set? Like, how many hours of work do you think you guys put in?
You see me sleeping?
That's what I wondered. It's a lot of time.
At its peak, I don't know. I mean, it's a lot of it gets done in the forums, which is wonderful because you can do it in your off hours. But I mean, we were having to fight to keep it to 2-hour meetings, and in some of them went 3-ish, because sometimes you just have to have the group in a room and talk stuff out.
Yeah.
Well, I'm actually, I was going to say in the next episode in a future episode of the Observation Lounge, or maybe an independent thing, I'm going to do a presentation that I had previously done for our 1E staff meeting on
Yes.
how to make an expansion.
I was actually going to tell you to do that more like somewhere
So,
else.
so rather than get into it too deep, because we're already running late,
Yeah.
but I'm going to do a whole thing on that where I sort of walk through how an expansion gets made from start to finish. But I'll tell you that we start expansions a year to a year and a half before before they actually release. And then while an expansion is being active, there's usually, as Alan said, a 2 to 3 hour meeting weekly, not to mention, hundreds of forum posts.
Well, like I said,
and then you have me breathing down your neck to actually keep to the schedule.
Yeah, and you got brand managers yelling at you, and rules team members telling you cards don't work, and all this and that. It's a lot of work. I mean,
the research. Yeah, I can see why you got to start like a year and a half ahead of time. You got to research Trek. You got to research other cards.
Like we're starting Block 4 now, and we're behind. Like we're already behind.
Yes.
We probably should have started Block 4 earlier, but we're just now really getting into the meat of it. So.
Well, and making, like Charlie said, it's making cards is easy. It's figuring out which card you're supposed to be making. Like, even Homefront, which looks simple. There was a lot of time that went into just figuring out what's the idea, and then you have to make cards for it. So, and I think we went through 2 or 3 different ideas before we hit that one.
Yeah.
Wow.
I look forward to that episode, Charlie, about the process.
It's a good presentation.
It's a good presentation.
Yeah. So, it's everybody thinks it's glory, and it's really not. I'm not going to lie and say it's not awesome to see like ideas and cards that you created get their art and then get released and see people talk about it, and then walk through GenCon and see people playing with cards that that was my idea. And I remember going through all the phases. That's still a thrill for me, at least. I can't speak to anybody else, but it is a ton of work. It's not, sitting around smoking and drinking scotch talking about ha ha ha, we are screwing over the plebes by making a card that makes Voyager bad. Ha 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 ha. There's not. I really wish I had a snifter right then when I said that, but what do we want to push? What do we want to punish? And then, if we get 4 or 5 playtest reports in a week, we go through all of them. Like, before I even go to a meeting, I go through all that feedback and read it. And then usually when I'm leading a set, I go and respond to all of it, or at least, if there are questions.
Yeah.
And then the design team, we talk through all of the feedback. And sometimes the playtesters accuse us of not listening. Because they say, I think this card is a problem, and we're like, can you show us how it's a problem? Or we don't think this is a problem, and then they say we don't listen to them because we don't change it. That's just human nature. I'm not blaming the playtesters. I'm very grateful for everything that they do, but it's like, no, we read and talked about your feedback and just decided not to change it, and then if you come back with more data, we'll talk about it again. Or maybe we didn't have time to talk about it this week and we just punted for the next week. But
or it could be you told us this card was terrible, and the other guy told us it's way too good, and we're just kind of splitting the difference and figuring it's got to be about right.
Yeah. So it's a lot of work, and then you there are maybe sometimes you'll get on a design team with somebody who has a very different philosophy from you, and then you guys end up butting heads a lot. But that usually makes the sets better.
Yes.
When you have different voices and different opinions, that usually increases the quality of the set. So,
Totally.
I really wish that I could give you, here are the 5 things that you need to do to get on design. But if you're involved in the community, that increases your odds. There used to be a rule way back in the day that the number one way to not be a playtester / designer was to ask to be a playtester / designer. I don't really hold to that anymore. So I mean, if you're interested in designing, and you tell me, or you tell Smiley, or you tell Nick Yank, I don't think that's not gonna hurt your chances. It's not just gonna be like, oh well, we were waiting for you to tell us. Here, come sit at the table. I mean, that's extremely unlikely. But if you tell us that you're interested, at least we know. And then when we are looking for somebody, we know who we can talk to. So especially if you want to be a playtester,
Yes.
just volunteer. Just you and
Exactly.
really at this point we used to require teams of 4. We'll take pairs. If you can play with somebody regularly and test, we will happily have you test for us.
Yes. At the moment, I would say, like, if you're actually wanting to be a good designer in the end, you should playtest, because playtest is where you actually see how cards develop over time, and that will make you understand the process better.
I will say this though. This is something I do believe is true. Don't join another team as a volunteer because you're trying to get to design.
No.
Because that is a good way. That is a good way to anger a lot of people. Because if you're joining creative to try to be a designer, and you aren't actually doing any creative work, and you're just submitting like design notes, you're gonna make the creative people upset, and you're probably gonna make the design people upset. And likewise, if you're joining the playtest team just so you can armchair design, I would rather join the playtest team because you want to make the cards that do come out better.
Yes.
And if you do that and you do it well, you will be noticed, and your efforts will be appreciated and potentially rewarded. And for playtesters, we're starting to get back to design a card rewards. So like playtest teams that do well, we're starting to say like, hey, pitch a card to us, and we'll see if we can work it in a set. And so that's another avenue to design for everybody. So long story short, there's no easy answer. I am going to do this presentation. I need to update it because it's very 1E specific right now, so I need to update it so it's more general. But I don't know if I'll do it on an episode of the Observation Lounge, or I'll just do it as a random podcast in the future. But we're going to make it public so that you guys can see start to finish how much work and how many people work on these expansions before they come out to you.
And Wedge is right. Some days you find out that you're told that your cards are bad and you should feel bad. So.
Yes.
Because I gotta say, that's one of the things that just blew my mind from sitting on that side is the cards come out and you have your set list and you have that mental image of this is the card that is going to blow everybody's mind, and it comes out and everybody goes, whatever. And it's like, oh.
Yeah.
And then some other card that was like, oh, like it's a whatever, and then it comes out, and then it's 20 pages of forum posts. So
this random KCA treaty that is not a big deal will probably generate 30 pages of discussion about how terrible it is, and then the super cool, ridiculous Klingon flagship card we made will be like, everybody will be like, meh. So it's just I gave up trying to predict what people will like and what they won't like a long time ago. I will say this. If there is a universal criteria for design, it is a thick skin.
Yes.
But isn't that for any volunteer position within? Does it mean especially like if you volunteer in
Sure,
OP?
but none of them are quite as public as design.
Nope.
I mean, you have to be able to handle criticism with design, and we've had designers in the past that have not handled it as well as they should have. But you have to be able to handle people saying, that's a bad card, or you made a mistake here, and sometimes they're going to be right, and you have to take that feat to heart. To aspiring designers is, if you really want to be a good designer, you have to know what you're bad at. You have to know what your weaknesses are before you can really be a good designer.
And ask for help on those weaknesses,
It's not so much asking for help, it's just like, I know that I have certain weaknesses as a designer. And when I'm on a project, especially as a
Lead.
so that I'm not letting those weaknesses dominate the project. So anyhow, this has been a lovely show, but we've run on a bit, so I'm going to go ahead and end things tonight. I want to thank everybody who contributed in the chat room and submitted questions. I wanted to thank everybody here on our panel, especially those of you who woke up at 3 in the morning. 4 in the morning. We got to watch the sunset in Sweden.
Yes.
Good
Nice.
Which is
Sunrise, but yeah.
so I will be putting up a link on the forums and in this video to the voting thread for episode 5. To vote on the time for episode 5. I promised European-friendly times for the next one, so I think most of them are all on weekends at various times, so that the Europeans are not getting up at 3 in the morning to be on them. But
I could do that.
please vote for which ones you want to see and what you want to talk about, and we will return sometime in September with the next episode of the Observation Lounge. So on behalf of the entire panel and the community, my name is Charlie, I'm the chairman, and the Observation Lounge is closed.